Okay.
All right, so let's go to the next one. And this one is coming all the way from Poland. Okay, so I'm gonna, right, so this little girl is asking, how can we do less smog in the air?
How can we get less smog in the air? Okay, so when we talk about smog, the word smog really, it comes from two words. The first word it comes from is smoke, and the second word it comes from is fog. Okay, so when we have fog in the air, you can think of basically fog is like a cloud that instead of being up there, it's come down to the ground, right? So the cloud is all around us and we see fog. When we have smoke from factories and cars and things going up into the atmosphere, you can think of smokestacks and they're high up and then the smoke is carried away somewhere else by the winds. But when you have the cloud coming down and the smoke gets trapped and we get this smog and it's hard to breathe and it can be harmful for us. Sometimes our parents have to keep you inside, or you might wear a mask. And some of the big cities of the world, they don't have clean enough air, so people are breathing and it's harming their health and people won't live as long and things. So this is a big problem that we need to address, and we need to address it by making sure that we have special devices on our smokestacks to take out the air pollution, take out the pollution for coming up the pipe so that only what comes out is more like steam. And also when, if a city lives in sort of a little valley and there's mountains on all sides, I'm thinking the place like Los Angeles is an example, then the smog can just get trapped there and it can just sit there for long periods of time. So we really, going to things like electric cars, there's much less pollution being put into the air in cities. So getting off fossil fuels and getting to cleaner energy sources would go a big way to reducing the smog. But many people are dying every year from air pollution. So it's very important that governments of countries have good controls in place to clean up the air. We need to have clean air, we need to have clean water, we need to have healthy food, right? To have a decent environment, a decent way of life. So another great question.
Thank you, Paul. I just turned on the lights because it's getting very cloudy outside, so we can get...
smog is coming in. Yes. Okay, so are there some more questions?
Yeah, yes, a few more to come.
Okay, great.
So the next one is coming now from Italy. Another one from Italy. All right, so this girl has a dream. She has a dream. She's dreaming that we are going to make a machine to change pollution and save our planet. So is that possible, Paul?
This is the best question that I've had. The best question. The other questions are great, but this one is just like, it's brilliant. Yes, it is possible. It is possible, and it might not necessarily be a machine. We might help nature do what it naturally does, but do it a bit better. And instead of harming nature, helping nature do what it does best. So what about what about cutting down less and less forest, less and less trees, and not just having the existing trees, but planting a million, which is a trillion trees, right, around the world, and having these trees, healthy trees, growing quickly, they'll absorb. That's like a machine of nature to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. But there's many different companies that are starting up to look at ways to make maybe artificial trees, maybe a human version of a tree, or to do what a tree does. So, for example, there's some companies which are looking. It's called direct air capture, or DAC for short. And the idea is to have big machines, big fans and big machines which take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and then they can put it in the ground, and it can turn into rock very, very quickly under the ground. People thought it might take 100 years or 1,000 years to turn that carbon dioxide into rock. And it turns out in Iceland, there's some experiments where it turns into rock within a few hours. And remember what I said earlier, that if we can create rock, limestone rock, out of CO2 that we capture, then we can use that to make cement. So instead of having to mine the cement, mine the limestone, we can actually make the limestone from CO2 we capture and use that to make buildings and things like that. So that would, any of these techniques, the key is to not be fixed on one idea, to try all of these different ideas, and then one so-called magical idea, has a much higher likelihood of occurring to pull huge amounts of CO2 from the atmosphere to make sure that you have a healthy future on the planet, and that your children and grandchildren have even healthier futures as well. So great question. Yes is the answer to that question.
Okay, let's continue. Next question. This one is, we're going back to Spain. Right. These kids.
Was there a question there?
There was a question there. I'm gonna tell you. These kids make me laugh. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It makes me laugh and cry at the same time,
That's right. So this bunch of kids are asking, what can we do to save our planet?
Okay, so you know what the biggest thing you can do to save your planet is when you go home from school, tell your parents and your brothers and sisters all about what you've learned about the planet, and the dangers that we have, facing our planet right now. And you probably have heard of Greta, right? So Greta Thunberg, in Sweden, very young girl, and she's like a rock star now. She's famous. Everybody knows her, and she leads these strikes from school on Fridays each week, and there's millions of people that follow, and nobody had heard of her of a year ago. So you can all become you can all become your own version somehow of Greta, right? There's nothing special about Greta. She's just a very knowledgeable young woman who she doesn't fear, what adults have to say and things, and she knows that adults are on the wrong path, and she's trying to lead young people and, lead the world to a better path, to a better future, just so that all young people can grow up in a much more stable climate and stable planet. I mean, what more can people ask for, right? So get the word out, talk to people, and don't be scared about anything, right? You're all very special individuals, and you're all very, you all have different ideas, and don't be afraid to speak truthful things to, it doesn't matter who, adults to anybody, okay? So it's great. These questions are all wonderful questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So let's go to the next one. And coming from Spain, let's see what they have to say. Right. What is the greenhouse effect?
Okay, so you know a greenhouse is being a glass building, essentially, and you have a glass building in central Spain, right? It's called the Crystal Palace, and I visited that just a few weeks ago, and it's a beautiful place. And if you haven't been for a while and you live in Spain or near Madrid, make sure you go sometime. So so the glass, the sunlight can come right through the glass inside the building, and the heat, the sunlight hits the ground and hits objects inside the building. And if an object is darker, right, black, it will heat up more. If an object is lighter, like white, it will reflect a lot of the light and heat up a bit less. But all of the objects inside heat up, and that heat can't escape. It's trapped by all of the glass. So the whole inside of the building will heat up from the sun. So this is basically, how a greenhouse works. So when we talk about greenhouse gases, it's a similar effect. But think of the whole atmosphere as being covered in this huge greenhouse, and we have these gases like carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and sunlight will mostly go through the carbon dioxide, all of the air, including the carbon dioxide, and come and reach the Earth's surface. Some of it is reflected, but a lot of it is absorbed, heating up the surface. That heat will then rise up. Now, the heat can't get through the carbon dioxide molecule. Some of it does, but a lot of it is trapped, so it can't get past. So the carbon dioxide is like a big blanket. It's like the greenhouse, and it keeps the heat trapped. So if the greenhouse gas levels are too high, which we're making them too high by burning fossil fuels, then more and more heat is trapped. And, like I said, different parts of the Earth heat up different amounts. So that's the greenhouse effect, right? That's all it is. So, and it's very important for life on Earth, but too much of the greenhouse effect and the Earth gets too hot for us to have nice, stable weather patterns, too hot for us to grow food, too hot for people to live in certain places. Okay, so that's what it is. So thank you for the question. Great question.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And this building you are mentioning, this glass building, is in El Retiro Park here in Madrid, in the center of Madrid. Beautiful park.